All right. Hey guys, welcome back. This is week 4 of the Mama Birds podcast. Thanks for joining us. This week it's just me and Daryn.
I know, so weird. Mom and Ashton are out of town.
We don't have them to keep us in line this week.
This is going to be wild. Unhinged time.
Yeah. So
we should have done this in the car because I feel like we have our best talks in the car.
Me and Daryn drive to the gym like every single day.
Every day.
It's like 30 minutes each way. So that's where we get
a good hour of just quality conversation.
Yes.
Unless the kids are with us.
Then we just listen to High School Musical.
Discipline practice.
So true.
But which we should talk about discipline one time on the podcast for like parenting.
Yeah, you guys can let me know how to do it because I'm failing.
No, I mean like I was like let's call in an expert so that I can learn how to do this.
Hello, God. Would you like to come on our podcast?
God. We would love you to come join us down here today.
Lord, please.
I know.
Anyway, this week, we kind of said Galen and Ashton are with their family on vacation in Tennessee, which is so fun.
Pigeon Forge, right?
Pigeon Forge.
They're at Jollywood today. I'm so jealous.
I know.
So
me
jealous.
Too.
I try not to think about any time someone is at a theme park without me.
Without you?
I have to kind of like put it in the back of my mind and be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
And then Mom and Dad are up in Flagstaff at our cabin.
Yep.
You guys are going there on Tuesday,
right?
We'll
be up there Tuesday. I'm so excited. It'll be really nice. We're just going for a couple days. But so weird because typically everyone is up at the cabin when we go, but it's just going to be us since Galen and Ashton are in Tennessee. Jordan's just chilling down home. Brett has to work, so they can't get away. It is in the middle of the week, so it's hard.
Yeah.
Carson's schedule just lets us, it's a escape in the middle of the week, which is nice. Yes, beat the traffic. Okay. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Be nice. Relief from the heat. It's getting hot.
Oh my gosh, it got hot fast. Not to talk about the weather or anything, but
we're pushing 115 and
we're struggling.
We're sweltering.
I'm reminded that no deodorant works.
Yeah.
Any clean deodorant. What deodorant do you use right now?
I like Little Seed Farm.
See, I have it.
I've been using it forever and I really do like it. I know you don't, but
no, I like the deodorant. I don't like how you have to apply it.
Yeah, you do.
Anything where it requires 2 hands. Mm-hmm. And it kind of, so in my head, it's okay. This is a process. It's not like when you have a stick, you just whip it out.
Yeah.
And if I usually forget, so at the gym I put on deodorant, I feel like if I whip out a jar, I gotta unscrew the lid, and I gotta take my little spatula. It's like way more of a production.
I know.
But I feel like it does work the best.
I do like it.
Unfortunately. So I guess I'll just be better. I'll be a better adult, a better woman one of these days.
We're all working towards it.
We're doing the best we can.
Well, we were kind of like segue into it.
Yeah.
We have been just talking about kind of like what do we want to talk about today, just me and you. And I think a lot of what fills our car conversations lately and over the past few years has been like anxiety, mental health, like all the hormones and just kind of a lot of that. Like we were in the thick of kind of that season of like struggle but also relief and kind of, so we thought we'd just talk about it today, kind of like what we've learned
and we've gone through those different things in so many different seasons of our life too. So like the most recent would be motherhood, pregnancy, but we also experienced all this before even
so there's moms. So we're kind of just gonna dive into like anxiety, depression, mental health, kind of like where it can stem from. I think that it's a multifaceted, obviously, conversation to have and like comes from so many different ways. We're going to only speak on it from like a personal level. Like we're not doctors.
We're not experts.
We just like, we're just dealing with it and having, so we're just going to kind of share like our experience and what that's led us to finding and just have kind of like a raw conversation about it.
I think that like since me and Jordan talk about it so often, we have kind of let all the walls down around the subject.
Like the stigma about it.
I know there's so much like shame that comes from talking about this with a lot of people. A lot of people are scared to talk about it. There's so many different reasons for that. But since Jordan and I are unique in the fact that we have talked about it so much and we've dealt with a lot of different types of this, that to us it's just second nature and it's not weird to talk about. It's also I feel like it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think that we've had a lot of friends approach us with this because they know we're open about that, which I'm a believer that anytime you go through something, it is important to be open about it, because I want our struggle and our pain to be for a purpose. And if that purpose is to help somebody, then I think that is worth it. So
amen. Also, I think that we're just super fortunate. We were talking about this yesterday too, just like fortunate in the fact that like we're sisters and we are best friends. Like we've been best friends for an entire life. And so like I'm very fortunate that I've had her there to be the like person that I feel comfortable to talk about with this. And like in the moments that like that were really low, and that she was somebody that was very easy to talk to. And I know that a lot of people do not have that. And so I can only imagine what going through stuff is like without somebody.
Yeah.
And so like my blessing is her, and having like really good relationships in my life where it's been an easy conversation to have in that way, to where I have a safe person. And a lot of people don't have that. So let that blessing of mine like hopefully bless other people and like make it an open door to kind of like share how we deal with things, and then like hopefully encourage you to build those relationships for yourself. Or even like I also want to say that like she said, we're very open about this, and it's something that like even though it's still a very sensitive subject, we're very, very much like we want other people to like to benefit from our struggle, I guess. So we are very
to
open.
feel less alone
too. And so we're always very open to like if anybody ever needs somebody to talk to or to reach out to, even if you don't know us at all. Like last time I was pregnant, I made it like a very apparent thing, like, hey, like please talk to me if you have anything. And it was a really cool thing because I felt like God put that on my heart. And I had like 3 different people come to me and that I didn't know that well. And it just was like, yes, like this is what that's about. It's just like making it a comfortable place for people to start this conversation, and then build the confidence to like
because once that you put out your struggles into wherever your influence is, it automatically just like lowers a wall between you and people. And especially with anxiety, mental health, depression things, it can be scary because it's a very lonely thing. So a lot of times when you're going through that, you will be convinced that there's nobody else that knows how you're feeling. This is uncharted territory. Like you are all alone, and it can feel so true. And I think that we've both experienced that. That's why like my prayer is, if you're listening to this, that you just know that isn't true, that other people are going through this with you, and it's actually way more common than you think. It's not normal, but it is common. I think that's a big I'm not sure what the word is that I'm trying to think.
Misconception?
A misconception. But so if anything, I just hope you feel less lonely if you're listening to this. And if you don't struggle with anxiety, this is still a really good resource for you to listen to, because I'm sure your friends, family are experiencing something like this, so you can be there or even reference them to this podcast.
So because I think that a lot too, like I know that you've gone through your own things too, but I think you have a very like unique situation too of being somebody who has been there like through the thick of a lot of stuff I've gone through. And like I can't put into words like how important that is to like be an understanding friend for people who are like, if somebody like if you don't deal with it and struggle with it, like it can be something where you don't understand it. So please keep listening if that is you, because like just knowing how someone else might be feeling and knowing kind of like tools of like how you can be a good friend and be a supportive person, I think that there's probably a lot of wisdom that you can share in that too.
That's just a quick tip right off the bat. So if you are someone who is friends with or loves someone that like struggles with these things, something that you can do that will like mean the world and also be so helpful is ask that person, like, when you're experiencing these feelings, what helps you, or what can I do to come alongside of you? And they may, and this is something that you ask them when they are feeling somewhat well, and that way they can come up and be like, okay, so if I'm feeling this way, I really appreciate someone just sitting next to me in silence. Or a lot of times it could be, I like you to sit next to me and like just tell me funny stories and rub my back. or like, and this is in regards to like if you're having like an attack, a panic attack or something like that, because everyone is different. Some people maybe like, do not touch me at all. I just need you to like be in the room with me, and just I need presence. So these are just examples. This is something that you can ask.
Yeah.
The person that you love that struggles with this, because I think this is a good tool also if you're married, to tell your spouse, hey, when I'm having these situations, the best way to help me is this, because they're going to want to fix it and help you and make it stop, but you need to give them the tools that they need to succeed in that. And like when you're in the middle of those feelings, you can't communicate that all the time, most times. So it's good to have those conversations beforehand.
I agree. Yeah, and I think that we'll go back to that too, because I want to dig in more to like all of those
I jumped
coping.
the gun. I just didn't want to forget.
No, I love that. No, all of that is so good, and I want to come back to, because
I'm like, I don't have a list, so I was like, I got to put this in here because this is where
you don't want to forget it. No, it's very important.
Yes,
and
Daryn's gonna keep me on track.
We're gonna reiterate all of that because I just love it. But so I thought that like maybe we can start by like talking about where it can stem from. Like where does anxiety, depression come from? And I kind of like, and obviously I want to reiterate again, this is coming from my own personal.
Yes, these are our own, maybe where it stemmed from for us.
Yes.
So it could be different.
And I mean, there is some backup that I have to this and research and talking to doctors and stuff, but I'm not a doctor. Just want to please
say no. We don't come off as the doctor type. We say like way too much.
But okay, so I think that a lot of anxiety, depression can be the result of trauma, can stem from trauma in your life. And then there's also, I guess I'll just talk from like two different perspectives. We're going to go over like the hormonal side of where it comes from, and then we'll talk about the kind that's triggered by like trauma in your life. And maybe we can talk about that just from our own experience. I think that everybody in their life, if you're a human, you've had some sort of trauma in your life at some point, whether it be major, whether it be minor. You've had something that has been traumatic experience in your life. And what happens is sometimes our brain does not process it well, or how it's supposed to be completely processed. And so it puts us in this, if it does not go through the whole processing to its completion, we can be stuck in this fight or flight response, and we can have like a kind of like PTSD, for lack of better explanation. But you are stuck in this. My brain doesn't know how to process this, so now I've created really unhealthy coping mechanisms for any time that I'm in a stressful situation, or anytime I maybe have a trigger from that traumatic event. My brain automatically just responds in a very unhealthy way. And this can happen without you even realizing it's happening. There have been so many times where I'm like, nothing bad was going on, and then I can walk it back and I'm like, oh, well, that one thing happened, and it probably like triggered my brain because of this that happened, and then you're spiraled out, right? And so we can kind of share our story of like kind of like what happened to us when we were young, and was kind of our first our first traumatic experience, because we, up until this happened, we lived a pretty like hunky-dory life, and like we didn't really have anything bad we lived a really, really good
well, life. And I do want to say too, like trauma, because this is something I've learned somewhat recently. I never used that word because it seemed so big. I was like, you cannot have trauma unless you went through this terrible tragedy, and that is what trauma is. But it also is smaller things that you probably did not identify as trauma. It could have been a really bad encounter with a person, like something that seems relatively small, but your body, your brain did not, it didn't function properly when you went through that. You didn't like completely have closure from that, so you are in that fight or flight response. That is also trauma. Like, it can be small things that you didn't even identify as trauma. It could be like unforgiveness too. So it could be the scheme, like it's so wide, like where all that can come from. A lot of times it is bigger things, like Jordan said. We'll talk about that. A lot of times it is a larger traumatic event, and then it's a little bit more obvious. But when you do have those smaller traumatic things that happen to you, you'd be like, where is this anxiety coming from? Because you don't identify that trauma that you went through. So it is good to like reflect and like go back and be like, hey, has there been anything that I have not healed from, or that I'm just not responding to correctly? So that's also another thing to mention.
Cool.
Do you want me to talk about?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I can. Okay, so
we can both talk about it.
Yeah, I'll start and we can just go back in it. So kind of like what we've built this podcast on is kind of like our family, and just we have a very close-knit family, and that's how it's just always been. We grew up really close with our aunts, uncles, grandparents, like all of our relatives were very close.
I'd say it's out of the ordinary. From anyone we know and their families, there's no family that I know that has the same relationships as far as like proximity and closeness. Like we grew up on the same street as our cousins, like literally the same street. We homeschooled, so it was just all right there. Like that's the type of close our family is, where it's like you have immediate family and extended family, but so much of our life it was just all
everyone together at all times.
So we're definitely very close to our cousins, which that also some people aren't fortunate enough to have those relationships, but we were very fortunate to have those. So my mom's little brother, our uncle Roland, he married Leah, and so they are the ones who live down the street from us, and they had kids very close in age to us. So McKenna is my age. She's technically a little younger than me, but she's my age. And then Steven was my age, and also I gotta give a disclaimer that we're probably gonna cry. Okay.
This is a really sensitive just whole podcast, so you will probably hear us cry at some point, and we're gonna try to keep it together the best we can. But bear with us.
Yes.
But okay, so Steven was my age, and when he was 15 years old, he just had turned 15.
I was 12.
Yes, so you were 12. I was 14.
Yep.
And he was found unconscious in his home, and without all the details, we found out that he had suffered a brain aneurysm, and he had passed away at the age of only 15 years old. And this was obviously a very rattling situation and experience in our life, because this was our first experience with deep loss. And
everything that led up to that, as far as like where each of us was at the time when we found out, and just like that jarring, like empty, like pit surreal feeling when you lose someone. You just will never forget it. It is the definition of traumatic. And Jordan and Steven, we were all very close, but Jordan and Steven were like best friends because they were that same age. They were in school together. They did everything together. Their personalities just clicked so well. So this was just a horrible, horrible situation for our family. It still is.
Yeah, and it's hard too, because when something like this happens, it happens to the entire family, and so everybody is grieving. And so when something like that happens, we all had to grieve together, which is unique in the sense that instead of having somebody to like go to with a clear mind, everybody was going through it.
There was nobody not in the murky waters.
There was absolutely no one that wasn't hurting deeply. And
our age. We were so young too.
We were at very, very formative years of just like, it was hard for us to understand if a friend was mean to us at that time. Like me being not even yet a sophomore in high school, and you in seventh grade. Like those are formative years, and to deal with that, your body does not know how to deal with a trauma like that at that age.
And then bring in your personalities as well. Everyone's so different, and your natural coping mechanisms are also different from each other too, which can manifest.
So especially like with you don't like sadness. You don't like that. So it's like your body is literally rejecting what's happening. For me, I'm empathetic. I'm taking on what everybody's feeling. And for so long, it was like, for me, I was taking on so much of what everybody was feeling all the time that it was just very hard for me to realize that like I was hurting so much and it was okay for me to be hurting that much.
Because it feels like you just want to make it stop. So like for me, my coping mechanisms are pain is bad. All these things are bad feelings. I need to make it like not be bad. So for me, it was push everything under the rug right now. You need to be the one, because nobody right now is feeling good. Nobody is happy. This is terrible. So I need to be the one that holds it all together. Which it's so funny when you say that, like, you know, years out of a situation or even just older and reflecting on it. It's like, that's so not the way you should handle things. And like you taking everything on for everybody else, we can look at those now and be like, that's very unhealthy. But it was natural, because when you go through something like that, you don't have necessarily like a clear mind at all. And you're just, you know, you're in survival mode. Honestly, that's what it is. And only a few months later,
that happened. So that happened in June, and then in December of the same year, we lost our great aunt. So my mom's aunt and my nan's sister passed away from pancreatic cancer, and so it was just like another thing.
It was just a terrible year. I think all of our family, 2006 is just not the year. It's just it's a horrible. Like the memories of it is just, and it's terrible too, because when you go through trauma and tragedy, you wish you could not remember everything. But those are the times that you have the most vivid memories, the ones you want to escape from the most. And that doesn't help when it comes to anxiety and depression, because we have the opportunity to relive it at any minute. Because it is just wired into our brains. I can see everything. I can hear everything. It's the most odd thing that our brains do. It's pretty incredible if you think about it from like just a science perspective and how our bodies work. But that just goes to show you how important it is to work on healing through things. As far as death and tragedy like that, you don't completely heal. That's not something that we're saying.
Here we are. I mean, it's literally 17 years later, and we're still like, it's a very, very sensitive subject that's still hard to not cry when we talk about it. And it's hard too for me, like, because we were the same age, every time then after that,
milestone.
When I graduated, every milestone, it was just like, Steven should be here for this, and Steven should be doing this. And like, so there's just a lot of things that come up. And so,
and we do know too, like in our family, like that's an underlying thing. At every family function, everything, it's always just there. Because you're like, this is something, there's absence. And it is just, it's the hardest thing to deal with. And that's why I think that's really the starting point for our
So that kind that was the starting point of, okay, our brains, up until that point, everything's fine, we know how to handle this. And then that happened, and it was like something went off in our brains that's like, okay, bad things can happen. And it was the first time that our minds finally realized that
we're not invincible.
To the extent of how bad things can happen, I think.
And I think that, like, for me, my core thing is fear. I am just a very fearful person. So I'm constantly in that, like, fearful of any terrible thing that could happen. You kind of, in any situation, you kind of think of worst case scenario and like, this could be this way, or, you know, those are just kind of and I also want to run from those things too. So, which isn't healthy. You really have to like confront your fears. And for me, I learned later on, because I dealt with all this, that's like, those are the things you have to just bring to God, put that at his feet, because like death, we have no control. So, and with the circumstances of life, we just don't have control. And so much of the root of that anxiety is that need for the control and like protecting and making sure you don't feel those things again. Like our bodies mean well. It is funny if you think about it. It's like our bodies are like mean well. They're trying to like protect us, and like we want to run from those things, but that's just not how we are made either.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think that was our first like trauma that we experienced that kind of set us off on this new path and this new brain waves, neural pathways.
Neural pathways.
Neural pathways of this is now we have to put up a defense and we have to like guard ourselves from hurt and we have to guard ourselves from bad things that can happen. And so I think that started a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. That we started to have panic attacks, and then our brains just kind of get into a pattern of this is how we cope.
Yep.
And this is like anytime something happens, it's like, okay, you used to like not be bothered by it, but now you kind of get used to living in this fearful way. Yeah. This fearful, like,
and the fear, and then also I could be having a panic attack at any moment, and they just will sneak up on you. So you also have the fear of, what if I'm in this situation and then I start having like a panic attack or something. Yeah. So it just compounds. Yes. Like it is an awful, it's an enemy. The whole anxiety situation is terrifying.
Yeah.
And when you do have your first anxiety attack, like for me, I remember where I was. It's probably like one of those things you don't forget either, like the first time, because when you have severe like panic attacks, they feel like you're dying. Like it feels, you don't know what it feels like to die, but it feels like it would be that way.
Yeah.
It's
like,
very
do I need
scary.
to go to a hospital? Am I having
you're like,
a
can
heart
I breathe?
attack?
Yes, it's literally so terrifying. I was in a work meeting and we were at a coffee shop and I was having to present something. This was my first big one where I was like, what is happening to me? And I had to excuse myself abruptly in the middle of my presentation. I went into the bathroom and I remember not even able to stand up, and I was laying on this bathroom floor and I called Jordan because I knew that she had been having them also, and I was crying and I'm like listing off all these symptoms. I'm like, is that what this is? I was like just looking for assurance that I wasn't actually dying and that what I was feeling was these things, because it was terrifying. And at that point you feel embarrassed too, because you're like, what has happened to me? I just lost all control of my body, my mind, everything. And it's very hard to recover from that situation. So that was a very scary situation, and it was so unexpected too. So I think a lot of times, if you've had one, it probably is a similar story where you're like, where did this come from? What was happening in that moment that triggered this response? It's just very scary.
Yeah. But then we just kind of like accepted that was our reality a little bit. Like we didn't know, we would do like supplements and stuff like that. We just kind of accepted that as being what life was a little bit. And you become like comfortable almost in that, as that's just my life. And then fast forward to years later, and Brett and I got married. We started trying to have kids, and I got pregnant and I lost the first baby. And that in and of itself was a lot. But then a couple months later, got pregnant again, miscarried again. And then we got pregnant again, and we lost that baby as well. And that was a very, very traumatic loss that I went through. And that was the first, like, very personal and lonely, because this was a loss I had to deal with, like, no one else understanding it. And so I think with Steven, I mean, it's different. I don't want to say that, like, one's worse than the other, because
it is different.
It's just different experiences, but this was the one that I had to do by myself. And so I share this because miscarriage is such a lonely thing.
Yeah. It's so hard too, because Jordan was the first person that, like, I watched miscarry, and I knew that our mom had a couple miscarriages before me, but it wasn't something that we'd ever talked about really. So Jordan having miscarriages was really my first time seeing it happen, and it was so real to me. And then it made me sad, because I started hearing all these women have miscarriages, how actually that happens so much, and I'm like, nobody talks about it.
Yeah, and you think about kind of like what your perception of a miscarriage was before you had one or experienced it, like, closely from somebody, and it just kind of like, it really hurt my heart kind of, because you don't
100%.
you just don't understand it. That's something that you just don't understand until you have yourself. So I want to bring shine a light on that for people who have had those, because I want you to know that's a very traumatic experience. That's something that was hard, and I see that and I feel that for you, and I don't want you to think that isn't a big deal, because it really is, and that is trauma. And if you are now experiencing anxiety or depression post miscarriage, there's a reason for that, and so I want you to know that is valid.
Yes.
But that I kind of just once again, you just accept your life, you go forward, and so now I kind of want to talk about how to heal it, because I want to bring hope to this. We talked about why we are the way that we are and what brought us to this point, but let me talk about now finding a way to heal from it. So if you have a trauma type anxiety, depression, mood disorder, or something that maybe stems from something traumatic. I would seriously urge you to talk to somebody, because there are things. I remember the first time that, mind you, I finally just went to counseling at the beginning of this year and found somebody to talk to, because I got to the point where I was I'm going crazy, and it got to that point, which we'll get to that, but I want to talk about how it can be so healing. The first time I sat down, I did not think that I was feeling the way that I was feeling or having the problems I was having because of miscarriages, or necessarily because of Steven. I had lived
It had been years
since those things that I didn't even acquaint the two. I just was man, I just am an anxious person. I don't understand it.
And you identified completely as an anxious person.
Yes.
Which, if you have anxiety, that is such an easy thing to do, by the way, is just be I'm a very anxious person.
I've always said I'm an anxious person, and I've always said that I just am scared of stuff, and I am. I just accepted that as my reality, when literally the Bible says I did not give you a spirit of fear.
Yes.
And and that has been something that I've really grasped onto this year, of
which
just
is
being
hard when you're in the middle of fear.
When you're in the middle,
so
I'm
overwhelming.
but I feel that is me. So why is God saying that? When I that is how I am. But within the first meeting with my counselor, it was me. She literally was somehow able to talk to me and be what's happened in your life? Talk to me about your life. And she, within just a few minutes of knowing me, somehow pulled out of me all of these things about Steven, about miscarrying, and was Jordan, this is your body's response to trauma. Those were traumatic experiences. Your body does not know how to handle, and this is how it's responding. It's unhealthy, but your body has become that's its natural response now. And through a lot of things, I've worked through a lot, and I just want to say, talking to somebody else who is a nonpartisan, is that a word?
I think that's
the right word. But talking to somebody who doesn't know you actually can be a very
third party.
Can be a really freeing experience, because and who is has the
wisdom,
know-how and wisdom to be able to explain that to you and what you need to do. And also, all of us are so different, so what works for me might not work for somebody else. But I think that talking to somebody and allowing them to kind of shine a light on things of,
and it does not have to be a formal therapist or counselor. If you have just someone wise in your life that you look up to, and they live a life where you're they're just, it seems like they've got it together, which no one does, but having someone to just go to and be hey, can I just talk to you about what I've been experiencing, because that just the talking is healing.
Yeah, but I think that having somebody explain to you, okay, this is how your brain's supposed to work, and it is a scientific thing that is happening in your brain. Your brain is not firing the way that it's supposed to fire post-trauma. So it's not that you're crazy. No. It's not that you somehow chose this. Your brain literally went through trauma, and it is a scientific fact that your brain is changed. The makeup of it is changed after trauma. And one of the things I wanted to say is the book Winning the War in Your Mind is
by Craig Groeschel.
I've read it so many times, and it does a just lovely job of explaining how this works, and like
from a scientific standpoint, just from your brain, like how
your brain is wired, how it gets how it starts misfiring. Very, very helpful book of just understanding why we think the way that we do, why we act and respond the way that we do, and makes it very clear and gives a lot of very helpful.
People do not give our bodies enough credit for how smart they are.
Yes.
Like, it is insane how your body innately knows how to heal in so many different areas.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you start that is having the knowledge of it. You have to feed your body and mind, this is how your body and brain work. This is how it is.
Because honestly, like, anxiety, panic attacks, all of those things are a defense mechanism.
Yes,
it's how
mental.
Your body copes
100%.
with what it's gone through. And so it's just, it makes sense, even though it doesn't make sense, I guess.
That's exact. It doesn't make sense. And when you're going through it, when you're working on healing, you will go through so many bouts of, this is so annoying that this is happening to me. Why me? Why wasn't I strong enough? Where we'll think that this is a weakness thing.
Yeah.
It's actually your body has been so strong in maybe fighting off the feelings that you haven't healed from, that your body's like, we need to work on this.
Yeah.
We need to fix this so that we can be the best selves that we can be.
Exactly.
And you have to acknowledge that. It's so easy, though, in this day and age. I don't want this to sound bad, but it's common to have this. We live in a society where we have way more information than we know what to do with. You can get on Instagram and you can see a terrible news story about people that you don't know, but all of a sudden you are obsessed with it, you're reading into it, you're feeling empathetic, you're taking on all these feelings. We weren't designed
made
for that. And that is times 20. You can scroll and see so many awful things in the world. We have way too much. So this is an epidemic. The whole anxiety thing, it is so crazy how common it is. And it's so sad when you think about it and when you're experiencing it, because it's hard. You start to feel like suffocated by it. It seems like everyone has this, so we identify with it. But you cannot identify with it. Once you take ownership of that, I feel like it's so much harder to heal from too.
Yep.
That so happened with me. I was like, oh yeah, I have anxiety. Almost like that's what
badge
I
of
have
honor.
now. Yeah, like I've gone through things. I have anxiety. This is what I deal with. What I wouldn't give to not have that, like, it is just a crazy thing that we have identified with, but we need to stop that in order to heal.
Yeah. Okay, so ways you can heal. I touched on talking to somebody. Honestly, above anything else that I'm gonna tell you, having a relationship with the Lord and putting that on Him.
Yes.
Is the most freeing thing that you will ever experience.
And if you don't know Jesus, that can sound so weird. I don't know what that's like. Thankfully, I feel very blessed. I was raised in a home that has always taught me that Jesus loves me. And so I have just always had a relationship with Christ. But I know for people who have not, that can sound so scary and weird. And I get it. I get that 100%. But be curious about it. Don't be judgmental. Be curious. That's a Walt Whitman quote. Yeah. Be curious, not judgmental. But be curious about Jesus and just run to Him with this, because if anything, use it as if this is your last resort. Just use Jesus. You've tried everything else, because that won't disappoint.
Yes.
100%.
So true.
It is the most healing. And God is so great how He does that. And He heals differently with everybody, because God is personal. It is a relationship. I always stress that. I'm talking about, we're evangelizing right now. But that's always what I say, because people will be like, oh, you're religious. No, I'm actually not religious at all. I am very just in love with Jesus. And I think just having that relationship, I think having that differentiation between religion and relationship with God doesn't want you to follow a set of rules. He wants you to choose Him, love Him, and to accept His love for you. That is literally all.
And honestly, I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. So I'm going to just put it out there because it's something that like I have, I'll admit that I have struggled with, but not completely struggled with.
Yeah.
But I get it. Is why does this happen?
Right.
Why
Yeah.
have bad things happen?
That's an honest question.
Why have I felt these things? Why did God like allow these things to happen? And through a lot of just like asking that question over and over again, it just really comes down to like, if God is love, love is a choice. Like we have to make the decision to accept that, right? Which means that there's free will there.
Yes.
Which means that like if everything is just good all the time and nothing can go wrong, then there's no choices being made.
No.
It's just being forced on you. And that's not love.
Exactly.
Like,
Because
if you were forced to love me, then there's not really love there.
No.
It's just you have to make the choice to love me
Yes.
back, and I have to make the choice to love
Yes,
you.
and we do that because we get to know each other. You learn about them, and then you truly do love that person. And that is how you have to. You wouldn't want to be married to someone and just automatically love them just in like a robotic way.
Yes.
That's not love.
Yes.
And that is exactly why.
But because there's free will, that means that we all have choices.
Yeah.
And because of choices, it leads to a fallen world, which is what we live in. That doesn't mean that it does not break the Lord's heart.
Oh, 100%.
That when things like that happen, like when my pregnancies did not go full term, that like broke the Lord's heart. When Stephen died at only 15 years old, that broke the Lord's heart. Like those things, he was not absent in those. However, like it's all because like everybody has options. We all like we just live in a world where there's like not everything's perfect. We don't live in a perfect world, and there won't be a perfect world this side of heaven. So, I mean, all that to say that just like that's why I like
we have the hope of heaven, though.
we have the hope of heaven, and I think you should look into it.
We think you should look into it 100%. From people who have gone through a lot of bad stuff, we still are choosing Jesus because we know that's the way.
And honestly, because I've done so much of trying to like do things on my own and realizing that that's kind of what got me into a lot of heartache. But okay, so that I'm going to talk about
I'm like, we're having to like take a deep breath and then switch into the next
like just
thing.
a few minutes ago, like the memory card was full, so we had to take a break, and I was just like,
I said, Jordan, get yourself together while I figure this out.
So we got a little break now.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna switch over from that, and then I'm gonna like literally list off a few supplements that I would highly recommend if you are dealing with anxiety. You can add if I forget anything, but ashwagandha is gonna be one that is a huge mood one. I would strongly recommend.
That's great if you don't have anxiety. Just take it.
It's just
anyways.
good. Anyway.
Yeah.
L-theanine, also great. Same thing. Vitamin D if you are not getting sunlight. I mean, obviously preferred get out into the sun first thing in the morning, at least 15
morning
minutes.
sun is the best for
15
you.
minutes of morning sun on your face.
Put on your bathing suit, go lay in your grass.
Yes, if you don't have time for that, literally just going outside and letting the sun hit your face.
Jordan's
in the
like,
morning.
I don't have time to put on a bathing
like
suit.
a bathing suit is not happening in my mornings, but if it does for you, that's awesome. Get a tan while you're at it. Magnesium. Huge one. Natural Calm is like a
that's
form
like
of
so
magnesium.
you can take magnesium in a capsule or there's
powders.
different,
There's so many different ways. There's gummies of it. Disclaimer: if you have not taken magnesium, don't go for the full serving size right at the beginning. Right at the beginning,
You will regret that.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
I don't know from experience, but Jordan does.
Yes, it will give you the worst cramp situation that you have
Down
ever
yonder.
experienced in your entire life. Please, 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 like do
Proceed
like a
with
fourth of a
caution.
teaspoon and
You literally on the bottle, I think it says like work your way into the
read the directions.
Yes.
Don't just read the serving size. Read the directions.
Yeah.
Bump it up. CBD oil. We've both had great experience with that. Up to like there's a
CBD. I just want to say CBD is one of those things where people are like, I don't know about that. Blah blah. I really liked it. That is something that I do consistently. This is also another even deeper into the, I don't know about that, but I like CBD with THC in it. That I definitely notice a difference with that in my mood. So I take that regularly. I recommend having the THC in it.
Which, like, no judgment either way. I think it's just up to every single person what their own personal comfort level is. I was taking it while breastfeeding, and like I didn't have a problem with it, but then the more that, I don't know, it's just one of those iffy things. So like if you're breastfeeding,
it's up to you. I took it while I breastfed.
So just like look into it, make your own informed decision. Chiropractic care, like I know that our brother's a chiropractor, but we literally just know a lot about chiropractic
because it is so misunderstood.
It is.
That's one of the biggest things. People are like, oh, you go crack for neck and back pain. That is not what it is at all.
But literally, I know you already did this, but literally your brain has your spinal cord, all your spinal nerves come off of it, and that's what tells your body how to function.
Yes.
If literally something as small as a fall, something as small as like sleeping on your neck wrong,
if you work out,
if you
have
work
a hard
out,
workout,
so many things. But like, especially with kids, there's so many things. But literally, it takes as little as like the pressure of like a dime or something like that.
It's like pressure on your spinal nerves, and then
it cuts off the communication to that nerve. So literally, you had all of your communication completely flowing, telling all your systems, organs, everything how to work, and then it's cut off because you slept wrong or something, and then your body's not functioning correctly. So literally, all a chiropractor does, which find a neurologically based chiropractor. If your chiropractor is not taking x-rays, talking about neurologically based
and
care,
explaining to you this should be common knowledge. Like the fact that people don't realize what chiropractic is, I'm like, that is a shame to the profession of not explaining to people because how it works.
All that they should be doing,
simple.
They're going in there, they're moving your vertebrae back into place, taking off the pressure, restoring function to that system.
Chiropractic and working out should be like, it should have been in Genesis. Like,
but honestly,
do this
you really,
and then go work out and get chiropractic.
You should look up, so a ANS chart. Is that correct?
Okay. Anatomical nervous system chart.
You can literally look at a picture of the spine, and it shows you which each segment of your spine, which systems it goes to. So let's say you are having anxiety and you looked at an ANS chart. It would say, oh, you might have a subluxation in your T7 area, which means that something happened there. It's cutting off communication, and now your brain is not communicating to the system that functions to that all those things and regulates all of those hormones and stuff. So it's just something to look into, because I promise you,
we're like, probably look into that 100% if that's the only thing you do.
It does correlate.
You don't even have to go to our brother.
Go somewhere. But make sure that they're neurologically based, please.
Although if you're in Peoria, go to our brother.
Okay. Anyway, so work out, move your body. Please move your body.
You don't have to do CrossFit.
You don't. You can go on a walk.
We love CrossFit. Go on a walk.
Literally just do anything. Go on a walk.
Go in your backyard, do some shuttle sprints.
Or shuttle walks.
You know.
Just move your body.
It just doesn't matter. Just do something.
Just move your body a little bit. It makes a huge difference.
It really does.
Breathing. Taking time to just like pay attention to breathing.
I need to do this more. Every time someone says this, I'm like, I do not have time to do this.
No, but seriously, it really does make a difference.
It does make a difference.
Literally breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth.
Yes.
It really just calms your body down.
I should do that when I go to sleep.
Yes. I wrote this down because it's something that helps me if like I have not had a lot of anxiety attacks. Praise the Lord. I've been doing a lot of work,
girl.
But something that helps when I'm in the middle of an anxiety attack, which may sound weird, is like spell with your eyes.
Oh, like drag your eyes over the letters?
Yeah, like pretend to spell a word with your eyes, because
that makes me car sick.
But it will make you stop thinking about whatever you're thinking about, and it calms your body back down.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's the tip.
I just always think of like my favorite place in the world, and I picture myself there.
I hate everywhere when I'm in the middle of an anxiety attack.
I always picture myself, if you must know, I picture myself in Newport Beach.
Oh,
I do.
With a blue margarita.
Yeah, like just somewhere,
2 for 1
somewhere on
happy
the ocean. I just love, unfortunately, I just love Southern California.
And our husbands don't like the beach,
and Carson
so
hates Southern California.
We need to have a girls trip there.
100%.
Okay.
I've said 100% so many times.
But it's fine.
I don't think I've ever said 100%. Feeling it.
Another thing, which is a huge thing, that you may not realize has a connection, but it could. So just be mindful of it. Caffeine and alcohol can have a huge, as we're drinking wine, but we're feeling great right now. But if you are struggling with depression or anxiety, like limit your alcohol and caffeine intake.
caffeine.
Caffeine is a huge trigger for both of us. So just
Which we learned the hard way.
Yeah, know your limits and know that if you are going to have something caffeinated, like have it with a protein or some
Can I
food.
say something real quick about the caffeine
Decaf?
thing? Okay.
Are you gonna go on a decaf
I'm going to
soapbox?
go on a little bit of a decaf rant real quick. I'm going to make a lot of people feel like trash right now. Just kidding. Don't. But really think about what you're saying. Okay. So me and Jordan have found that caffeine triggers anxiety attacks. A lot of times we've gotten, like I said, we're healing. So
even
like
if it's not anxiety attacks, just anxiety in general.
Anxiety in general, just feelings of like, anxiety. We don't need to explain that. So it has become very obvious. Cold brew does it to me, and espresso. I can have drip coffee a lot of times and it'd be fine. I can have the other things and be fine. But those are definite triggers where if I have a cup of coffee, like if I get an Americano or something, not decaf, it'll be almost instantaneously where I start to feel that. It is so funny though, because anytime I order decaf, or if you just talk to anybody about decaf, they will go off on a rant about how that is the silliest, stupidest thing. What they don't know is that I literally will become like in a terrible state of mind if I have the caffeine. It is so messed up to shame people for drinking decaf coffee, and let alone stupid. That is a stupid argument. I don't care the process in which coffee becomes decaffeinated. I know there are ways and there's chemicals involved in some way or another. But listen, I look at me drinking decaf coffee as an actual coffee fan because I like the taste of it. I don't do it for the energy. So the fact that I'm drinking decaf means that I actually probably like coffee more than you because I'm drinking it just for no reason. And this is, I'm sorry, the Jordan's like, okay, calm down. But literally this is years and years of people saying like, that is so dumb that you drink decaf. I'm like, would you like me to sit in your lap while I have an anxiety attack from my Americano?
Do you want to hold me?
Yeah. No. So stop shaming people, and also don't feel bad to drink decaf coffee because if you do, you're probably really cool like me and Jordan. So yeah. When I buy my Nespresso pods, I buy more sleeves of decaf than not, okay? And I'm fine with it. Okay, I'm sipping down. Sorry. But I just want to say, stop being that person.
If you enjoy if you enjoy caffeine, just make sure you eat first. Like, don't wake up with an empty stomach and have caffeine first. It's
and then
probably
go work out. I've been doing that lately, and I'm like, Daryn, you know better.
Don't do it. And then prioritize sleep. It's really hard, especially as a mom, but like, know that if you are in a season of struggle too, and there's a lot that has to be done around the house, and like your baby also needs to is going down for a nap and you want to work around the house. I totally lost my train of thought. But like if your baby is going down for a nap,
I was
and
like, yes, I know.
And you're like, I really need to get the house clean. Know that like rest sometimes is more important than a clean house, because sleep is honestly should be almost like number one of priorities.
Yes,
especially if you're dealing with mental health stuff.
Yes, 100%.
So, I think that's enough for like the trauma side. I want to move into hormonal, because we were like, oh, we're not going to talk this long. There's just two of us. And in my mind, I was like, I was like, but it's us. So we're probably going to talk more.
Go 3 hours.
Yeah. So let's jump into the other side real quick. Trauma trigger.
Trauma triggers.
Trauma.
Now we're moving into hormonal side of those things.
Because I think that this is something that is going to be a very, very common, especially for people who might be listening to this, because mostly going to be those moms who are like new moms within the last few years going through the hormones stage. Also, I want to say there's a lot of outside factors that play into hormones. We can go on.
There's a lot. We won't go into all that
of this, but
if you have questions, though, you can honestly let us know.
If you were born in the last 30 years, you probably have hormone problems.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so
it's almost like our parents didn't care for us.
And our mom really did care for us, but still the amount of toxins we were
insane. Yeah. So you don't even realize.
She saved us from some, but yeah. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. Okay, so then the hormonal side. If you are like in childbearing years, and even not, I mean, technically you're in childbearing years as soon as you could.
If you have a period.
Yes, as soon as you have a period. Let's just go off of
that. If you have a period, you're dealing with stuff. 100%.
Hormonal imbalance. Hormone imbalance.
If you have a period and you put perfume on every day, this is for you.
Or just there are so many things that lead to imbalances.
Use the microwave, you know.
Yeah. But you probably do have some sort of hormonal imbalance, which can lead to anxiety, depression, mood disorders. Like, it just is a very, very, it makes sense.
It's complex,
right?
Yeah.
It's complex, but
it makes sense when you look into it.
If this might be you, let me give you my very, very quick why I'm very passionate about this and why I've found myself in the place I am right now. Okay. I have always had hormonal bouts. Let's just say that when I am pregnant or they're just like right after. However, I hit a new low after having Davy, and it was totally good. It was almost 7 months postpartum. I had like the normal like baby blues afterwards and like the normal like sadness and stuff. However, as soon as I hit, I think almost 8 months postpartum, I got hit in a way that I had never experienced before, and it was bad. It was dark, and it was something I wouldn't wish on anyone. And so I just want to like bring light to that. If you're feeling those things, you probably have some sort of postpartum like depression, anxiety, something that's going on because your hormones are all over the place, and it just makes sense. It's like, it's not fair, but it makes sense. And so the first thing that I would say to do, and I mean, I glossed over that like very quickly.
Yeah, this is a whole thing.
But let me just tell you, it was a very, very, very dark time. Like the type where like I was seeing things and like things that weren't there. I felt a sadness that I had not felt before. And so I got to the point where I was like, something is not right. I remember calling my midwives. I said, I've experienced stuff before, but like this is different, and this is a little bit scary. So like, what do I do? So even if it's not that severe, even if you're just feeling like it's just through certain times of the month, you're just like, something's not right. First thing I would do is get a hormone panel done, because information and knowledge is power, right?
Yes.
So
and it will just give you peace of mind through it.
To know that like,
you're like, this is not actually like a new me.
Yes.
This is like something my body is dealing with, and I'm not crazy.
Like, just know that. So one of the questions that we had gotten is like, why do we feel like scared to reach out? Why do we feel shame to reach out? And it's literally because you feel weak, but like you're not.
And it's
weak.
almost like,
and that's the lies that are being fed to your brain, because when you're in that, you're like, I should be good. I should be able to do this. I should be able to do all of these things. But that's just, it's your hormones.
For me, it was a lot of like, for me, something that was scary, which maybe this is somebody else. It's scary to admit that you're having thoughts. And not like, the thoughts are just weird. Like, if you've experienced any postpartum stuff, I don't want to like, I won't go into detail, but just so you know, like, you will just be driving your car, and then you'll have like a crazy thought of like, I could just turn into all these oncoming cars. That sounds nuts. That's very mild compared to a lot of postpartum thoughts you can have. And it's almost like it feels embarrassing to like say that, because you don't want people thinking you're a bad mom. You don't want, but it's like, those are just literally
very
hormonal.
Normal. And it's all hormonal stuff. It's not you. And so I think you feel shame because it sounds awful.
Yes.
And maybe
But
if you're telling
that inside, honestly makes it worse.
Yes, and maybe if you're telling somebody who's never had stuff like that before, then they can be like, I think you need to be checked into an institution. Because there were things that I could have told people that they would have been like, you probably need to go to a hospital and like, don't be around your kids for a little bit. But it's really like, but then I tell somebody who's seen it before, and they're like, yes, that's not right, and it's not normal, but it is very like,
but
this is what's going on.
You're not alone in this.
So the first thing I did was go do an Everlywell test. So that is a more cost-effective thing. If you want a very basic, it's going to be a finger prick test that you just do. I mean, if you can go to your doctor and you can get a full blood test done. That is obviously something that's a if that's easy for you, go do that. I really liked the option of just like being in my own house and doing it.
Like, if you're anxious about going out and doing something like that, just order it. It's literally, you can do it. I watched her prick her fingers at her table.
I was in a place where I was like, I can't even
leave this house. It took like 10 minutes to do the initial prick because she was nervous. But
you just prick your finger, and then it gives you a very like, It was actually not. It was kind of in depth.
I feel like it was
did tell me,
detailed.
and it told me at least like a overview of what was going on with my hormones and like what could be going on or could be going wrong. And so from that, and then I could work on off of that. But then I learned about the Dutch test, and
Which explain that a minute.
Yes. Okay. So a Dutch test is all based on urine. And apparently, like the same reason why we do like urine pregnancy tests, because our hormones are actually very, very potent in urine. And so, so I would completely say that investing in a Dutch test is like the way to go. Ask your doctor about it. We need to link her, but the girl that I use, Sage and Wellness.
Sage and Wellness is her name?
I believe.
Okay.
We'll put it Willow. I don't know.
Yeah,
now I'm drawing a blank.
She did you jumped on like the FaceTime with her.
So what you do with her is you fill out this questionnaire, you tell her all the things that are going on, like what your concerns are, and then she orders a Dutch test for you. You do the test. It's really just like a 2-day test. They send in the things to a lab, they come back, and it's in extremely detailed results. Like it goes through more than you could ever
That's so cool.
understand. But then Dr. Daryn, she read through all of my stuff. She told me, like, with this information, this is what's going on. It was very informative. Like, I realized that all of my levels were at postmenopausal level. So all the things that I were feeling were very, very, like, understandable based on where my levels were at. So knowledge is power. Doing that, finding out what's going on with your hormones. Don't take it on as like I'm crazy. Take it on as like, okay, we just had a baby.
I'm not crazy. Let's figure out what in my body is crazy.
Our baby like took a lot from us, and the whole process. We go from our hormones being way up here to then dropping way down here.
You guys, if you've had a baby,
it just makes sense.
It makes sense. Look at what you've gone through.
If you don't have hormonal stuff after having a baby, then like you're
a magical
it's
unicorn.
amazing.
Good
like,
job.
And that's how it should be.
Yes.
But like don't be afraid and like upset if you do stuff.
Yes.
So that would be my first thing to say. I also think that is a huge thing, like as postpartum, as women, we kind of talked about body image and stuff last week, but we want to get our body back, whatever that means. But like
you won't ever, because it's a different body.
It's a different body. You have a new body, but that should not be the main concern after you have a baby. For your mental health, like as one of the top reasons, please do not sacrifice your mental health over your body image, if that's the right way to put it. Because a lot of times we're like, oh, we're going to restrict this, and like, oh, I'm losing weight because I'm breastfeeding. If you're breastfeeding, you need to be eating more. Yeah. Even if you're not breastfeeding, like feed your body. Don't like fill it with a bunch of Oreos because you need more calories. Feed it with like really rich,
love your body,
nourishing foods. Like do not cut back on healthy fats. Healthy fats are literally what regulate all your hormone production. So good butter is good for you.
Yeah, like butter is such a big thing that we change in our diet, and that
really is.
You
eating
have to have
full
good
eggs, good cholesterol, good for you, and like all good things. Like don't eat like just a tub of ice cream because you're like, oh, I need fats. No, eat really, really good sources of healthy fats, and like that's what regulates all your hormone stuff. That's a huge thing. Eating first thing in the morning. We kind of wrote that with the last one, but like something that as like a new mom, or like even if you're not a new mom, just being a mom, like getting up in the morning and like instead of like being like, oh my gosh, here's another day. Like I get it. I have 3 kids.
100%.
We have kids. We get that you wake up in the morning like this is a hard day. Like especially if you're in a season of overwhelm and like anxiety and toddlers.
Yes.
It can, but wake up every morning and be like, Lord, this is gonna be a good day. You are going to give me the energy and
declare it. Go outside and say it.
Go outside first thing in the morning. Drink some water. Do a little devotional time outside, and like start your mind off well.
Yes,
it's
get
like
yourself
huge.
in a good routine in the mornings.
Yes,
it is crazy in these times of like parenting, motherhood. These early years too, we sacrifice so much. Everything we give is to our kids. So you will most likely you push your hobbies, your interests aside, but you have to, if you see yourself like struggling in those types of ways, you need to prioritize your health, what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, your morning routine. It is very important. You need to be moving your body. That is like you've probably seen it said or heard it said, like if you don't move your body, like if you move your body, it isn't selfish. It is the most selfless thing you can do, actually, because you're going to show up as a better mom if you are moving your body and taking care of yourself with what you eat, what you put into your body, and making time for the things that bring you joy. That has been something where, like, I felt guilty. I mean, Chip is turning 3 in October. I will not lie. For, like, the first, like, up until now, I have really honestly felt guilty about, like, doing anything that was, like, more fulfilling me. But I'm like, it does contribute to your health in doing those things. If you are draining yourself just taking care of your kid and doing everything for them, I get it. I love it. We love our kids more than anything, but you cannot do that forever. That's not sustainable. It's just not. And it's not fair to them. So you have to be your best self, because I know Chip has way more fun with me when I'm feeling good, because I want to have fun when I'm feeling good. And so that's just something to look forward to if you are dealing with a lot. If, like, you're in a dark place with, like, hormonal things like that, like, just give it's something to look forward to work on all these things.
And too, like, making time with your spouse, like, and
that's
like putting a importance on that. I know that, like, we kind of started out doing that last year of just, like, making time for dates. It does not have to always be an out date either. Like, financially, sometimes that just doesn't work. Even just being like, okay, this night every week is a night that we put the kids to bed and we have, like, a late dinner together, or a late dessert making time together, or just
intentional,
like an intentional time together, because that honestly, you can lose that so much through the, like, raising kids days. And honestly, like, your spouse is the greatest gift in your life. It might not feel like it right now, because that's obviously, like, that's a relationship that is an easy one to feel the, like, the tension.
Which, isn't it
in.
funny that with your spouse, it's like you're supposed to be your closest relationship, but when you're in these early years, it's almost like the easiest one to be like, okay, hang on.
Yes.
Because you know they'll be there, and they love you, but it's like that's the opposite of what needs to happen. It needs to be like, okay, come here, instead of hang on, like, come here and be with me during this.
And which kind of, from the beginning, what you were talking about and how to be there as a supportive friend, like,
oh yeah, my first point,
your very first point, like, I want to get back to it now, because this is the point that I want to make with it, is, like, your husband cannot read your mind and cannot understand what you are dealing with,
no matter how hard they try.
As hard as they try, because, like, Brett honestly is the greatest husband and emotionally in tune person a lot of times with me. However, he can still never understand what it is that I'm feeling.
Yes.
Even if I try to explain it to him. But what we can do for him is to explain things.
Yeah, and give him the cheat code. Like, this is what is happening, and this is what I need from you.
Yes.
Don't leave it to, like, don't be playing games. Games were for when you were dating, you know.
Like,
don't do that now.
I told Brett, like, a few weeks ago, I was having a hard time. I'm like, when this happens, you need to take me out of the situation, and you need to make me go somewhere. Yes. And he's like, but you always say this. I'm like, yes. And I will continue to say that. Even though I'm having this conversation with you.
Forever.
Yes, even though I'm having this conversation with you, I will probably still fight you on that. But you need to say, no, Jordan, you're getting in the car and we're going to do this. Because that's what I need. And I'm telling you now in a rational, like, state of mind that I need you to pick me up. When I'm in a state like that, the thought of putting shoes on to even walk outside feels overwhelming. The thought of getting a kid in a car seat to leave my surroundings feels like too much. And that is something that
which can sound crazy to them,
because
they're like, you're literally
why?
Putting on your shoes. What's going on? And you're like, so much is happening.
But honestly, so much is going on in your mind that, like, that feels like too much. So letting them know when you are in a good mental space and, like, feeling like good, letting them know what you need. Just tell them, because they cannot read your mind. And I know when you are emotional and you are dealing with hormones that, like, you are like, they should know. Why does he not understand? Why doesn't he realize when he said that thing in that tone that that's what made me mad?
They don't know,
because they have
and
no
that's
idea.
Okay. That's just not how they're built. And even if you're not married and you're having whatever your situation is and you have these feelings, tell this, like I said in the beginning, tell your sister, tell your mom, tell a friend, and be like, if I'm experiencing this, like, we need to come up with a word, like, where I can text you and be like, this is what's happening, and you need to just create those support systems and give them the cheat code for your situation so that they can be there for you. Because think about it. When you want to be a friend to someone or have that relationship, you want someone to tell you.
Yes.
You know, you're like, tell me what I can do for you. Let me help you. Like, that is exactly. Yeah. So if right now when you're listening to this, that should be the first thing you do. Go to that person, tell them, like, this is what's going on. That is part of healing. Yeah. Is having someone support you. You can't do that alone. Yeah. So you need Jesus and you need someone to support you through this.
And honestly, like, I want to tell a story because it is important. And, like, I don't think she even realizes how important she was during this time. But being mindful of other people and, like, vigilant to other people's like feelings and stuff, because when I was at, honestly, like, my breaking point the end of last year, before I started reaching out and getting help, I just posted something on Instagram about how, like, I had no, like, I think I just said something along the lines of, like, I'm trying to find my joy to cook again. Like, I loved cooking, but I was in a place of, like, such, like, despair. I hate to use that word, but that's literally what it felt like. Yeah. Like, I lost joy of everything. And I, like, put that out there of just, like, something so small. And a friend who isn't even a close friend. So that's why I want to say this, because, like, you don't have to be a close friend. You don't even have to know anything going on in other people's lives. But if something feels off, like, a lot of times I believe that that's the Holy Spirit too. Like, speaking to us on behalf of somebody else. Is just like, she read that and she sent a message that literally will forever change my life, because it led me to getting help. But she just sent me a message that said, hey, I just want to check on you and see how you're doing. I'll never forget, like, my first year after having my third baby and how hard it was. And it literally, like, made it okay for me to tell her that, like, I'm not okay right now and I really need help. And she opened that door for me. And, like, even though I had so much other support, it was somebody else who, like, realized that something seemed off. And so I'm going to just say it, even though it might be uncomfortable for her, like, to say that. It just completely changed my entire life from that point forward, because she hooked me up with, like, who I'm talking to now, and, like, and let me know that those feelings were okay to have, but it's not going to be that way forever. And so, like, be that hope for somebody else. Yes. If you are healthy, or if you had gone, like, now I feel like I'm in a healthy place. I am, like, so excited to, like, because I know God's going to send me women who, like, need this. And so I'm so excited because I'm equipped with knowledge and, like, I'm ready to be, like,
and Daryn has, like, I will say from, like, the outside perspective, I've just been with Daryn through all of this, and she has been so much healthier in this year. Like, it is night and day difference. I love her always, and I always think she's amazing, but it is crazy how she's, like, come back to, like, herself in so many ways, and it's just so cool to see. And, like, that's why, like, we're talking about this, because it's like, this is happening. Like, it's not like it's happened where we're, like, healed. It's like we are healing. Like, this is a thing that we are going through, and it's just been really cool to see. And it's like, I want to encourage you that, like, regardless of even if it's mental health stuff, like, reach out to people. Like, if you have, like, that urge to say something to somebody, to, like, open a door for just, like, being vulnerable, do that. Because, like, everyone is so scared, I feel like, of, like making people feel uncomfortable. But it's like, the most comfortable you can make someone is making them know that you are, like, a safe place to talk to. That's all. Like, human connection is everything. So, like, me telling Jordan that would be different than somebody who, you know, this friend. Because it's different. Because it's just she's someone noticed, and that is, like, a huge thing. And it is true, like, the Holy Spirit does use people, and it's just really cool.
And just even talking about, like, your story, it makes it comfortable for people to share it with you. Because, like, if you hold in, like, miscarriage is a taboo thing, right? And it's like, nobody wants to talk about it, but then, like, when you find yourself in the middle of one, and you're like, I feel so alone, and you're like, I wish that there was somebody to talk to. Like, that's why I'm sharing things with you, because I want you to know that, like, I will talk to you, because nothing is the same once that happens to you. Like life is just different after that. Pregnancies after that are different, and like, it's just, we need community.
We need to not brush that kind of stuff under the rug. We need to not downplay traumatic things that happen, because that's really where this stemmed from for me.
And there's no shame in it. We shouldn't add shame to it.
Like, that is a terrible, terrible loss. It doesn't make a difference what point it is. When you get the news that you are carrying a child, if that's ever happened to you, you know. Can you imagine that loss? Like, it doesn't even need to be described. It is a baby. That is what it is. It's terrible. This happens to women, and women don't talk about it enough because
there's healing that needs to be done.
Because there's not enough support. Because people are not talking about it. It needs to be talked about because it happens, and it is terrible. And those babies deserve to be talked about also.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. We might have to split this up into two,
that's okay.
but there's like one more thing that I do feel is important to share, because I just think that as any woman, it just is important to track your cycle. Because a lot of things you would know is coming and you could plan for it, right?
Which I never track my cycle.
Yes.
Jordan made me start, and it was very helpful.
Because you could have an irregular, menstrual cycle we're talking about, in case you didn't catch that.
Okay, menstrual cycle.
You could have, an irregular cycle, or it could be very, very regular. But you should, have on a calendar that, hey, 1 week before I start my period, I feel this way. Or for me, I start to go crazy the week leading up to ovulation. That's something I only know because I started making notes of it and I started writing it down. So now I know not to be surprised by anxiety that comes that week leading up to it. So I would encourage everyone who has a cycle to start writing down notes. And this is so funny. I feel like this is an old lady thing to do. But I literally printed out a blank calendar that
she's turning into our mom.
I totally am. But this was the best way for me visually to be able to know. I printed out 3 months, and each day of the month I wrote down how I was feeling that day and any notes about it. And then I filled it out for an entire month. Then the next month, I filled it out. And then you can look and be okay, this was the day that I started to feel anxious. And look at it. It lines up perfectly with my menstrual cycle. This is how I feel leading up to this, and this is how that happens. And so you can plan for it. If you know that next week is going to be the week that anxiety is coming, you can be okay, I'm not scheduling anything that week.
Yes.
And which you should look up.
Take control of those things.
It's called cycle syncing is what you can do then, and knowing that you are more powerful to do things during this part of your cycle than you are this one.
And emotionally, physically.
Be I am if I know that this week is a week that is a struggle for me, I'm going to sit at home and not plan a lot of things socially with anybody because for me that's a draining thing. Or if it's a week that you're very, very social and you want to do it, plan your things for that. Plan the times that you go out and do stuff with people or trips. Plan it on that cycle so that you can be your best self. Don't plan meeting up with friends on the week that you're going to be very anxious and stuff. So there's just a lot of power that can be from that. And so I would totally 100%. I mean, there's apps that do it too.
I know,
if you don't want to be archaic.
Sometimes actually seeing it in front of you.
It's hard because you have to click on each day. This one you could literally can visually see.
We should design an app.
We should just
for this.
Pop it all up.
But I think that'd be a great idea.
I know we've talked so long, but
but it is all good stuff. I feel like there's you could go on for days and days, especially with the hormone thing, because we can segue into so many different things.
There's so many different streams that can go out from
honestly, this is something that affects so many people. So we just wanted to shed light on all of those aspects in the quickest way, and to just remind you that you're not alone. You are not crazy. These things can be healed. It does take time. Time is a hard thing, but once you make those steps, it does get easier.
Yes.
And having an understanding of it makes it easier also. When you don't understand something, it's scarier and more confusing and can induce those feelings even more. So it is just having that knowledge of that. If you do struggle with any of these things and don't even know where to start, even after listening to this, go ahead, send either of us a message or our podcast a message, and we would love to just encourage you and maybe tell you a first step to try. We don't know all the answers, but we just want to be here for people, and that is we've said it at the beginning, but that's the whole point of this podcast. We just want to make people feel loved and seen in a world that is hard to feel loved and seen in.
And
So-
open up doors of just talking and communication.
Absolutely. Yes. In the way that we do it. This is the most serious that we are too.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I feel like I can breathe now.
Yeah.
But yes, next week we will be back with Mom and Ashton, I believe. I don't know what day they get home.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Well, but we will be back with you guys next week,
Yeah.
either just us again or them. We'll keep you posted.
see.
But as always, if you guys have any feedback or questions, comments, or things that you want to hear us talk about for over an hour, just let us know.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah,
It
we
really-
love and appreciate anyone
Yeah.
who listens.
We love you guys so much. Jesus loves you more.
Yes. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.